I want to talk a little bit now about the Latino identity. Latino, Hispanic, Latinx really depends on your immigrant experience. And wanted to ask you, as a Latina, how do you identify, and how does your gender come into play in a culture that has been male dominant?
Mhm. I think when I think back on like when did I start to identify as a Latina, it actually goes back to when I started teaching. Before that, I always used to talk about being Mexican. And a big thing and a big reason why I did that was because I never felt growing up that I could claim this country as mine, even though I had built a whole life. In fact, like I remember talking and being so careful never to say our country, because I didn't want people to feel like I was taking ownership of a place that maybe didn't belong to me, having been undocumented. And when I started teaching, 56% of the student body in my school was Latinx. I was the only teacher that was Latina in identity. And I had students from Central America, from South America, from Mexico. And I was like, well, I'm in community with my students. And a way to do that is to say, like, we're Latinos, right? I'm bringing in everybody who's in my classroom and we all belong to this community. And so I actually started to change how I identified myself after teaching, because it felt important to me that it wasn't just about, being Mexican for me. Like, yeah, I'm from Mexico, but when I'm here in the US, my community, the people who maybe look more like me, that's my Latino community. And so I started to identify more as Latina or Latinx, as a way to make sure that I was being inclusive of all those other stories in my classroom and in the community where I was teaching. And I continued to identify myself in that way. And, in 2015, when I had this really great privilege to go to the White House and to be recognized as a champion of change, I received this letter from then President Obama. And in that letter, he said, the Champion of Change program is for ordinary people making extraordinary change, right? Like Americans. And that was the first time I had ever been referred to as that. And I remember even in the ceremony, they kept talking to us as like Americans. And I was like, wow, I can claim this country. And I think so much about that letter, and I hold it very dear, not just because it has a fancy signature from President Obama, but because it was that moment when I felt like I belong to this country, not because I have citizenship. I belong to this country because I am helping build this country. I'm helping build and uplift my community. And that is what it means to have citizenship in a place, is to take that ownership and that responsibility of how you make a place better. And I think that was the first time that I saw myself that way. And I recently was able to adjust my status and went to visit Mexico for the very first time in 20 years. And when I came back into the country and they looked at my green card, and I was, the officer said, "Welcome back." That was like a huge moment for me, because I was like, that's right. I am home here. Like, I am both home in Mexico, but I'm also home here. And so I think how I've understood my identity throughout the time has really been shaped by the different experiences and communities I have been a part of.